This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
It is getting late early for the Dallas Mavericks, who are now down 3-0 in the NBA Finals. The Boston Celtics 1 game away from winning it all. We're going to break down Game 4 in the NBA Finals, outline key takeaways from last night's game, talk some serious prices as well, if those are still pertinent at this point, maybe talk some MVP, and then we'll dive into the NHL, the Stanley Cup Finals, let you know our thoughts on Game 3, which is tonight out in Edmonton between the Oilers and the Panthers, and I'll talk NASCAR in Iowa later on. Welcome on into Covering the Spread. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and FanDuel Research. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research. Joined here to kick things off by Tom Vecchio. You can find Tom on Twitter at Tom_Vecchio1. Find his work over at FanDuel Research. Of course, you're on Covering the Spread and on the FanDuel Research podcast feed as well. Tom, happy Thursday. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yeah, a very exciting game last night. I think it tells a lot about what we've seen overall. The hockey tonight is obviously very interesting. There's some news and notes we need to get to. And then a little bit of U.S. Open this weekend. So I'm ready to roll.
Gonna need the Oilers to do some stuff here because I need one of these series to be longer than 4 games. So I know you were on the Panthers. I don't want that bet to be squashed. We did talk about, I think it was a 6-game series. Panthers win 4-2. So you still have at least some incentive for the Oilers to show life at some point. And I think that we got to root for, I'll say it's for your bet, but primarily it's for selfish reasons where I don't want this stuff to be done quite yet. Right.
You know, I am on the Panthers straight up. I am also on the Panthers -1.5 and Panthers winning direct 4-2. So there's like a few different outcomes that I'm rooting for. You know, I could still be profitable if the series ends 4-1. So,
right.
You know, it is what it is at this point.
The Panthers -1.5 was +160. So that would still be a good payout if it's 4-0. You got the -130 overall. So we can still be happy. Just would prefer to have.
Right. Just from the entertainment value.
I want one of the series to not be a dud. Is that too much to ask? And so far the answer has been yes. So we're going to break down what we learned last night in Game 3 of the NBA Finals. I think you can figure that out pretty quickly. We'll talk about some serious prices there between the Celtics and the Mavericks, then talk NHL. And as I mentioned, I'll talk NASCAR in Iowa after that. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast. Second show coming up later on today. We're going to have Dr. Ed Feng on to preview the Euros and break down his thoughts on how he makes his model for Euros. We're going to talk about where he sees value for those, talk some individual matches as well. You can find that on the Covering the Spread podcast feed later on today and likely up on the FanDuel YouTube page and FanDuel TV Plus tomorrow as well. So make sure you're subscribed to the Covering the Spread podcast feed, subscribe to the FanDuel YouTube page, and leave us a thumbs up there as well. We appreciate those of you who have done so already. The NBA Finals, at least for now, are here, and FanDuel's giving you the chance to win alongside the champions because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with a winning $5 bet. That is $200 to use on same-game parlays, live bets, and so much more. There is no better place to bet all the finals action than America's #1 sportsbook. Just download the app and take a shot at an extra $200. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 18 plus in DC and 21 plus in present in select states. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, DC, Iowa, Kentucky, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, Vermont, Virginia, and Wyoming. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777. Or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700 in, or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Now, Tom, let's begin things here by talking about Game 3 in the NBA Finals last night, where the Celtics build a big lead early, The Mavericks try to claw their way back, but can't quite get there. Now the Celtics take a 3-0 lead. This game was in Dallas. So how does that impact your view of this series, given that Dallas, even when they were at home, could not get the job done?
I think what we saw in this game was a bit of like an exaggerated version of what we saw in bits of game 1 and 2, where in game 1, the first 7 or 8 minutes, the Mavs are up by a few points. They're keeping it super close. And then in that second half of the first quarter in game 1, it's just this avalanche of shots from the Celtics. Porzingis had a great game, and they just roll in. What we saw in game one is what we saw in game 3 last night, where the Mavs jump out to a 13-point lead. Celtics come back. Then all of a sudden we have the Mavs storming back with this 20-2 run or 22-2 run, whatever it officially was. And then the Celtics pull away, which is, again, it's essentially what we've seen the entire series, where the Mavs at no point are they able to put together a full 4 quarters. They look great for half a quarter. They look great for a full quarter, maybe an entire half, where the game was within a few points last night up at halftime, and then it wasn't. So when push comes to shove, the Celtics are just a better team, and they're just refining their game, and they're getting it done at each point. And ultimately, they deserve a lot of credit because, they went through the steps. They go to the finals 2 years ago and they lose. They go to the conference finals last year and they lose again. Like, they learn from their mistakes. They refine their half-court offense. They brought in Drew Holiday. They made the proper adjustments. And now they're ready for every situation because they've been there before. So while I have the Mavs plus 1.5 on the series spread, which is, I'm going to say, completely dead at this point, what we know from the Celtics is they have done everything proper over the last few years to get them ready for this situation. Is even when they're down, they know how to come back into a series or into a game to ultimately take control of the series. So while the Mavs may win game 4, there's no chance they win game 5.
Okay, so let's talk about the series prices right now, because you said there's no shot they win game 5. Celtics minus 7,000 to win this series. So the Mavs are 20-1. You talked before the series began about Jaylen Brown to win MVP. He is now minus 340 to win NBA Finals MVP. So Tom, when you look at these series prices, anything you want to grab, or is it more so just down to single game betting at this point?
It's down to single game betting at this point, just because, as I said, I have the Mavs on one side, a little sprinkle on Brown at, what was it, 7-1. Mm-hmm. And there's just so many conflicting things right now where ultimately I have to worry about just coming out net even or net positive slightly. So if you have interest in the Mavs and you want to take their money line, they're -1 now, and they move to +1 at some point over the next few days, and you just want to take the series to go 4-1 at +175, that's fine. Again, they could win just because it's the finals. They're good enough to get here. I don't expect them to win game 5 in any capacity. So you just want to take them at +175 because you just want to see the series extended. That's cool, but I just have so many things all over the place that I just got to keep it where it is and just move on to the single game betting.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So let's go Jaylen Brown come through to help us get a slight positive here on this series. As Tom mentioned, that series price, Celtics win 4-1, is +175 right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. Let's take a look at game number 4 to set for Friday night out in Dallas. As of right now, the Mavericks are 1-point favorites. Total in this game is 211.5. A lot of unders so far in this series. So Tom, looking at game number 4 specifically, where are you seeing value right now?
It's going to the under, going to under 211.5. It's at -112. We saw a lot of back and forth action, especially in that run by Dallas, and just too many shots overall. And this is what, I said at the beginning, where the Celtics learned over the past few years. So when they get into that situation and, potentially Dallas making a run, knocking down a ton of shots, that's when they slow the game down. That's when they really, really have to drag it down, let Drew Holiday facilitate the offense. That's why they brought him in. Just, take a breath, and that's going to limit the possessions overall. And that's really what a finals game should be when it's crunch time, where they can't be getting up and down, running and going on these major swings. So I will start with under 211.5. I think it's basically the best spot to go. If the Celtics come out as underdogs still and they're +1.5 or +2 again, if it moves, I'm going to be interested in the Celtics. I just think they're too good at this point, and there's really no way the Mavs come out with this series. So I'll take a few points here or there anytime you can get them with the Celtics. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and I think that there are a couple paths to an under here too. It could be like maybe Luka and Kyrie finally figure things out on the defensive side. Not going to bet on that personally, but it could also be you kind of see this cascading effect where teams lose hope if they lose at home in game number 3 and they quit. And if they quit, they're not putting up a lot of points. So I think there are a couple paths to an under here, and both those do correlate with taking, as you mentioned, the Celtics spread under 211.5. That same game parlay is plus 243. So you're kind of FanDuel's playing that one pretty straight, not a lot of correlation there. There is a slight correlation towards an under. I guess it wouldn't be a +1, but plus 243, a potential same game parlay there if you think that this series is pretty dusty and the Celtics are going to be able to lift that Larry O'Brien trophy on Friday night.
I would also look to Jaylen Brown over 10.5 rebounds plus assists, and seeing good stuff from him on the boards as we have really throughout the postseason. 8 last night, 4 and 6 in the other 2 games, distributing the ball, 8 and 7 assists over the last few games. So again, if I'm working with the under here, and I also think that the Celtics have to slow things down and operate just a hair more efficient on offense. Not saying they're not being, but if, again, these swings happen with these big runs, just take control of things, take that breath, run the offense properly, and putting Brown in a spot to be, again, like an off-ball distributor after Drew Holiday will put him in a good spot to pick up assists, as we've seen, plenty of players knock down shots. But then again, crashing the boards, assuming that Porzingis may not play, they're going to need those more rebounds as he showed last night. So the combo market, again, a little bit of correlation with the under, take things slow on offense, control things. I think Brown can get the over, hopefully, en route to an MVP as well.
Yeah. Lock it up, Jaylen. Over 10.5 rebounds plus assists is -113 at FanDuel Sportsbook. That, again, is for Jaylen Brown in game number 4. Hopefully, we're still talking about the series come next week. Let's shift focus now, Tom, and talk some NHL, where we are heading out to Edmonton for game number 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals. You talk coming in about being high on the Panthers, and you talked about the suffocating defense, and that has obviously played out. They've let up 1 goal across 2 total games. Pretty dang good. So when you look at the series prices right now, any incentive for you to buy low on the Oilers and series prices, or do you want to let your Panthers tickets ride?
I got to roll with the Panthers. As despite the fact they eliminated my Rangers, looking at this objectively, like I said it last week when we did this, like the Panthers are just the better team. They're better at like every single instance outside of McDavid and Draisaitl, potentially every other spot. They're better. They're better on defense. They have better goaltending. And that has really shined through. So it's kind of like, don't touch the chips. The chips are down, you're rolling or whatever. I got the Panthers multiple ways in different series bets. Let's just let that ride. Do I have a slight interest in maybe taking a sprinkle on Panthers winning the series 4-1? Do I think Edmonton's obviously good enough to win one of the games at home? Sure. It's the kind of same thing with the Mavs, where it's like they could probably win a game, but they're not going to win that game on the road in game 5 at home. So maybe I can get there in my mind tonight, taking the Panthers just on the series 4-1. But at this point, kind of just leave the chips where they are. Don't touch the money. We'll be good in a couple of days.
Now, you talked about tonight. That is game number 3. And that one potentially of additional intrigue because Sasha Barkov is banged up, got hurt in game 2, is with the team in Edmonton for tonight's game. But obviously, if Barkov can't go, that was kind of the key thesis for you around being high in that Panthers defense was he's an animal. And if he's not out there, that could be a big detriment. So looking at game 3 specifically, with where things stand right now and Barkov's status still kind of up in the air, where do you see value for tonight?
So like you said, Barkov, he's with the team. He practiced full yesterday, goes to Edmonton. There's reports saying he's expected to play. It looks good, but there's obviously no official confirmation yet. So let's just make that clear at 10 a.m. on a Thursday morning. If he's out or if he's not at 100%, combined with the desperation factor that the Oilers are playing with, I think the easiest route to go would be Sergei Bobrovsky over 24.5 saves. He had 32 saves in game 1. He had 18 saves in game 2. With the fact that they're down, an opposing goalie only being required to make 18 saves is, I'm going to say, like unacceptable from the opposing offense. So again, if Barkov isn't at 100% and the Oilers are at home, which means they preferred line change, they have the second line change, which means they can put McDavid and Draisaitl in better spots when Barkov isn't on the ice. That should hopefully open up the opportunity for them to take a few more shots and force Bobrovsky to do more. Because if he ends the game with 22 saves or 21 saves, yes, as I've said, the Panthers defense is awesome, but also means that the Oilers offense isn't doing things at this desperation point in the right capacity. So Bobrovsky over 24.5 saves. There's a few things I think moving towards him having to put up a big performance, needing to put up a big performance, whatever you want to call it. Keep things simple when it comes to tonight, at least.
And we know that Bobrovsky can rise to the challenge if there is a lot of shot volume against him, which definitely does help here as well. So a couple of things converging to make Sergei Bobrovsky over 24.5 saves, minus 125, a good value for Tom. Any other props you like here? I know not a lot is up, given that the Barkov question is out there, but anything else stand out to you?
So shot props aren't up for the Florida Panthers. They're up for the Oilers. I will say I have seen some Florida Panthers shot props around the industry. Sam Reinhart over 2.5 shots I have seen out there at minus 145. That's a line I'm comfortable with. He's on the first forward line with Barkov. So if Barkov he's not the like highest volume center to begin, highest volume shooting center to begin with. If he's not going to be driving to the net and forcing himself into tough areas to get an extra shot off, him deferring to Reinhart is kind of a normal thing already. So let's just roll with a player who we know is 100% at over 2.5 shots. See a minus 145. If you can get it better than that, I would go there, but I wouldn't go past minus 150.
Okay, so check out the Reinhart shot prop once it is up at FanDuel Sportsbook. Just going to peek quick to see if it's gone up in the past couple of minutes, and has not. So check back at FanDuel later on, kind of see if they've got those Panthers shot props posted. If they are, look at Reinhart. Minus 145 is the number you said you saw out there as a potential number for Reinhart over on his shot prop. That is Tom Vecchio. Make sure you check him out on X at Tom_Vecchio1. Find his work over at FanDuel Research, and also find him on the FanDuel Research podcast feed Mondays and Tuesdays. And of course, we'll have plenty of Tom on covering the spread, even if these series are a bit shorter than we would like throughout the summer as well. Tom, appreciate the time as always. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Alrighty. Big thank you once again to Tom, as always, rooting for that Jaylen Brown ticket to come through for him over the next couple of nights. We're going to close up shop for today by talking some NASCAR. And it's a pretty fun event this weekend because they're in Iowa. It's at Iowa Speedway for the first time for the Cup Series. We've had a lot of drivers who have run this track in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series. They used to come here twice per year at Xfinity, once per year in Trucks. They stopped in 2019. So there are a good chunk of drivers who have been here quite a bit from back in their lower series days. And that's an interesting dynamic. The other thing here to know about Iowa is that it is a short, flat track, less than a mile in length. It is not as flat as, places like Martinsville and stuff like that, but it's still pretty flat. And also they did repave this track since the last time the Cup Series was here. So what I'm looking at in general is looking at performance on short, flat tracks, trying to identify drivers who tend to do well at that setup. And I think caring a tiny bit about how they've done in Xfinity and Trucks, but I think I care more about experience than that. So when we look at the markets of FanDuel Sportsbook, there are 4 bets that stand out to me for Sunday's race. And the first one is on a driver who has potentially more experience on this track than any other driver in the field. That is Ross Chastain. Chastain 28-1 to win this week at FanDuel Sportsbook. And I find that pretty intriguing because Ross does have, as I mentioned, a big history here. 14 total races in Iowa for Ross across Trucks and Xfinity. And his results aren't great. But you have to keep in mind that Ross, for most of his career, outside of his stint with Brad Keselowski Racing, when he was in those series, he was running for underfunded teams. And he still ran very well. In fact, he actually got a win with Nice Motorsports in Iowa back in 2019, the final Truck Series race here. It was eventually taken away because he got disqualified, but he had good runs before that as well. Led more than 100 laps a couple years before that. So Chastain has run here a lot, has good history. As far as what he's done on short flat tracks this year, it's been okay, more underwhelming, I'd say, than anything. But we have to remember that Chastain did win in Phoenix in the championship race last year. So seeing him in good form is not that far in the rearview mirror. Seems like Trackhouse has started to turn things around from a mid-spring slump. So I do like Chastain to win. I don't factor in a lot of the intangibles in my model because it's kind of hard to figure out how to factor those in. But even without, bumping up Ross for what he's done at Iowa in the past, I still have a 4.6% to win. His implied odds at 28-1 or 3.5%. So I think there's enough there in Chastain to bet him to win the Cup Series race 28-1. I will also say I don't mind Ross 30-1 to win in the Xfinity Series. Underfunded team there as well. So the equipment stinks, but he doesn't. So the one outright I like right now is Chastain to win 28-1. The lone bet I like on a driver who does not have history at Iowa is Martin Truex Jr. to finish top 5. That is plus 150. And I've got value on Truex to win this race. So you could go that way, but I kind of want the increased flexibility given that Truex is one of the few guys who has not been here. But Truex is a guy who has been outstanding on short, flat tracks during his career. 8 of his 32 wins have come on that track type, including a completely dominant win in New Hampshire last year. He's been good at those tracks this year as well. Could have won the Richmond race, was okay in Phoenix, always tends to run pretty well in Martinsville, not as good this spring, but overall, I like Toyotas a lot, and Truex is part of that. So he's plus 150 for a top 5. That is 40% implied. I've got him at 47%. Maybe I'm too high because I'm not factoring in enough the experience on this track, but I still feel pretty good about Truex, top 5, plus 150 at FanDuel Sportsbook. And again, I've got him at 47%. Another driver with good experience in Iowa, not the best results, but a good amount of experience, similar to Chastain, is Bubba Wallace. Wallace to finish inside the top 10 is plus 170 at FanDuel Sportsbook. His history in Iowa is he has run here 9 times between the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. And he's been okay. He's had 4 top 10s, I think, in the Xfinity Series. So he's run okay. And one of the times where or 6 out of 9, I think it is, top 10s across Trucks and Xfinity. One of the non-top 10s is a race where he won the pole, led about 40 laps, and then lagged back later in the race. So he's got history at Iowa, if it's not the best history. I'm going to excuse how he did at Iowa because Wallace has been a lot better on short, flat tracks more recently in his career. Kind of started back in, I think it was 2021 or 2022 in New Hampshire. Had a really good run there. And that's carried over at New Hampshire. He's had a couple good runs there recently, but also Phoenix and Richmond and Martinsville. If you look at the past 3 races at either Richmond, Phoenix, or Martinsville, Wallace has had a top 8 average running position in all 3 of those races. It also had one in, I believe, Richmond last year. Maybe that was New Hampshire as well. But either way, his overall form on short flat tracks has been a lot better of late. Seems like he's kind of refined that craft. So he has history at Iowa. He's been getting a lot better on this track type. Sportsbooks don't really seem to be super high in him, but I am. I like Wallace top 10 plus 170. If you want to get a bit more aggressive with Wallace, I do show quite a bit of value in him to win at 46-1, quite a bit of value in him to finish inside the top 5 at plus 550 as well. But if you're looking for the best value, I think it is in this top 10 market, plus 170. I've got him at 51% to finish inside the top 10 versus 37% implied. The final guy I'm showing value on right now is a guy who actually is a 3-time winner in Iowa. That is Eric Jones. Jones won here back-to-back races in the Truck Series, then graduated to Xfinity, and then he won the second race in Xfinity the following year as well. So he's shown good form at Iowa, and he's 6-1 to finish inside the top 10 for this week. Now, Legacy Motor Club has not been good on short flat tracks in general. Jones has been better, I would say. Recently, he had a top 10 average running position in Phoenix at the championship race last year, had top 15 finishes in 2 of the 3 short flat tracks so far this year as well. So seems like he's slowly getting better. He is coming off a back injury, so that could downgrade him. He's had some improved races recently where he's been getting a little bit better, hopefully, from that injury. But I think there are some factors to be worried about. But when you factor in good amount of experience in Iowa, good form in Iowa, I've got Jones at 19% for a top 10. His implied odds are 14.3%. So pretty okay with Eric Jones, 6-1 to finish inside the top 10. So the 4 bets I like for the NASCAR Cup Series in Iowa, I like Ross Chastain to win 28-1, Martin Truex Jr. top 5 at plus 150, Bubba Wallace top 10 at plus 170, and then Eric Jones top 10, that is 6-1 over at FanDuel Sportsbook. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. Big thank you once again to Tom Vecchio for joining us to break down NBA and Stanley Cup stuff. Find Tom on X at Tom_Vecchio1. I am on X at Jim Saunas. You can also find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. As mentioned later on today, another episode coming up with Dr. Ed Fang breaking down the Euros 2024, his favorite bets over at FanDuel Sportsbook for that event. Find that here on the Covering the Spread podcast feed, the FanDuel YouTube page, and FanDuel TV+. Want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your bets in the Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals. We'll talk to you once again later on today to preview the Euros. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.